As someone who's been severely addicted to F1 for way too many years now, it feels kind of wrong to try to list down the flaws and the weaknesses of every single F1 driver in the 2024 grid, but at the same time, every single driver needs their bit of criticism from the F1 community to be better. Now, a lot of these drivers are extremely skilled, so it's really hard to try to find a weakness that they have, so I've decided to take more of a creative approach on finding some of these weaknesses, even if it was, well, kind of easy when it comes to some specific drivers. But anyways, here are every F1 driver's weaknesses. Max Verstappen is by far one of the hardest drivers to come up with a weakness for. He's one of the most dominant drivers to ever exist in Formula 1 history and was faultless during the 2023 season. Those are the words coming from Lewis Hamilton's mouth, which he gave by showing the finger to the FIA. But just before you think that there's no one that can stop Max Verstappen, you are very much mistaken. I swear to God, the only driver who can beat Max Verstappen is his dad. Quite literally.
My dad did that once to a mechanic with a fork.
Now, other than Jos Verstappen, another weakness Max carries is his patience. You know how Max and his engineer GP almost always have an entire couples therapy session mid-race? Well, most of the time it has to do with Max being impatient and yelling for his life, while GP literally sounds like he's having the calmest vacation in the Bahamas. But regardless, Max's patience could really cause him to make mistakes on track, although we didn't really see him make as many in the past couple of seasons. Impatience goes towards any driver, but because Max has a character that is super duper competitive on track, and he would literally do anything to win a race, even if it means getting on top of Lewis Hamilton.
And Hamilton have crashed out, and they are both out as Hamilton came.
So this means that a little hint of impatience will have a potential to cause mistakes in his driving, despite Max being such a skilled and developed driver. Last but not the least, we have a competitive teammate. People say that there's a reason why Red Bull has been pairing Max with drivers that are good, but just not near his level. Max needs a team player, not a rival in the same machinery. We learned that back in 2016, where that dynamic definitely worked. Max would have had, honestly, more trouble during the 2023 season if Checo was a lot more competitive instead of acting like he's driving in Chinese F4. Remember when everyone was saying that the Red Bull title fight was gonna be absolutely insane? Well, that didn't last longer than Nick de Vries's seat in F1. Just imagine if Charles Leclerc and Max Verstappen became teammates, or anybody else like Lewis Hamilton or Fernando Alonso. This would either result in the most anticipated final title decider in Formula 1 history, or the most teammate collisions in the sport.
It's Friday then, it's Saturday, Sunday, what?
Lando Norris is also a very talented driver, but finding a weakness for him was relatively pretty easy. One of his weaknesses is unlucky strategy calls either by him or his team. Lando could have gotten his first race win in Russia 2021, but after stressfully deciding not to pit for intermediates in the rain, Lando bottled that win harder than a pirate riding the location for his treasure. In another instance where it wasn't Lando's fault, during the Dutch Grand Prix of 2023, McLaren decided to stay out in the rain, and without a doubt that immediately became the worst call to make. I have never seen a worse strategy call.
Stay out, stay out, stay out.
Wait, sorry, I have seen worse strategy calls, but I've never seen a strategy call so bad from McLaren. The funnier part is that Lando was literally told that he was faster than the intermediate tire runners, while getting overtaken by them.
We are faster than Inter's cars.
What the are you stupid?
It seems that McLaren has been channeling their inner Ferrari recently. Now, because of these incidents, Lando Norris has acquired an allergy to race wins, which is another one of his weaknesses, which really just feels like a curse. I swear, by the time it's the year 2100, Lando would still be trying to go for his first race win, straight up driving his McLaren looking like this. Every time Lando would ever come close to a race win, another driver would edge him out by just a small margin, or he just fumbles the bag completely. It's a curse. This guy's weakness is literally a curse. Another weakness Lando has is that he is a PR team disaster. Like, obviously he may not be making as much of a mess compared to Bianca Bustamante, who I might make a video on after her recent dramas, but there isn't a single media moment where Lando isn't saying anything remotely sus. The McLaren PR team is always on high alert when Lando comes around the corner, and I swear bro even needs to be stopped from answering an interview because he is just too expressive.
They can give you a good massage in Amsterdam. Thanks.
It's happened. happened? We need to know who's going to come out in front as we see Lance Stroll hitting the barrier.
Alright, so now we have the interesting case of Lance Stroll. Right away, Lance's weakness is that he drives like an absolute imbecile. A lot of fans say that he's never leveled up his skills from the 7 seasons that he's been in Formula 1, and based on his performance in the 2023 season, Lance drives like he's never touched a car before. Also, remember that Drive to Survive clip where Lance said this?
Under pressure. Diamonds are made under pressure.
Yeah, nah. The moment he got a car worthy of competing for podiums, he bottled it almost every single time. Heck, he's so good at screwing things up that he nearly messed up Alonso's first race by kissing his cheeks.
We can see the Mercedes on the left-hand side, and he just went too fast into that corner.
Lance has never been able to remotely keep up with Alonso, who is pretty much fighting for the Constructors' Championship by himself, so it's pretty much a skill issue for the guy. This brings us to another one of Lance's flaws, which are his inconsistencies. Literally once every year, Lance manages to drive as good as Ayrton Senna, but throughout the rest of the season, his biggest inspiration is Nicholas Latifi.
Sporting message. Expecting at least
Is on the intermediate tyres, and
They're the same picture.
Let's also not forget the fact that Lance is turning into a wannabe Kimi Räikkönen. He gives the shortest answers in his post-race interviews, but the difference between him and him is that this one gives short answers after driving like an absolute monkey. Wait, you know what? I wouldn't even say monkey. They probably drive better than Stroll. Now, Nico Hulkenberg is one of the most underrated F1 drivers out there whom I occasionally kind of root for from time to time, but I'm not gonna ignore the fact that this man is literally allergic to podiums. Nico, you have come so close on more than one occasion, but you managed to fumble it out of bad luck or just a driver error. This is just as sad as watching McQueen lose out to Jackson Storm. Another weakness that a lot of fans see in Nico is that he just doesn't have a competitive car, especially with his current run at Haas. The guy has been putting that tractor of a car into Q3 on more than one occasion, but because the race pace of that car was an absolute pile of garbage and it eats tires up for breakfast, Nico Hulkenberg just plays possum as he's forced to lose at positions because the car just can't seem to keep up. We've seen Nico pull some amazing drives in his time as a reserve driver for Racing Point and his run at Renault. The man has so much talent and skill, but just can't seem to get close to victory, either because he has a bad car or horrible luck, or just blatantly pull out a driver error when he's right there near victory. Another weakness to point out is that Nico is not fully committed to F1. I feel like he's honestly just there to do what he can, but doesn't exactly plan to stay in the sport for any much longer. So there's really not much room for driver development, which is honestly just completely fair. I mean, the man already has a family and is already reaching an age where most drivers already retire.
And Chuck Leclerc, he said, you know, I filled it.
Charles Leclerc is the next driver on this list, and it's honestly just, he's probably the funniest driver to do, I swear. I'm not even gonna do this on script. Leclerc is just the easiest driver to come up with weaknesses for. His number one weakness is Ferrari. Not even their strategy, just straight up Ferrari.
I don't think anymore now. I stopped thinking a long time ago because
the team has screwed up in way too many ways for me to classify it as just being their strategy calls, even if they can sometimes be absolutely abysmal. Charles being in Ferrari is both a blessing and a curse. For one instance, he can have the fastest car on track, but then be absolutely screwed over by the team's pit stops, dog water strategy calls, and his unreliable race engineer.
Careful with traffic when we go out, very important. Copy.
His loyalty to the team has got to be one of the most honorable, but one of the stupidest things I've seen in a while. It's like committing to your partner who constantly cheats. Monaco is another weakness for Charles. Every time he races there, it's either he kisses the barriers or gets another mid-result. Last year at 2023, it wasn't too bad though, with Ferrari finally making decent strategy calls for the team, probably to recover from Monaco 2022.
Stay out, stay out, stay out.
The final one is Charles just not knowing what the car's limit is. In the 2023 season and in many other seasons where Charles is just pushing to the absolute maximum, he sometimes ends up forgetting the car's limits and just pushes way too far. As a result, something like this happens.
In the middle, fastest middle of anyone. Verstappen's first sector not good, there's a yellow.
I understand Charles might just be trying to push the car to its limits, but if he keeps kissing the barriers, it's going to make it very difficult for him to get a good race result and make it more difficult for the team to have to repair the car almost every time. He gets pole positions at the expense of losing the car, costing the team repairs, and sometimes he has this in the race where he's pushing way too hard and just makes mistakes. He needs to know how far he can push and not to force the car to do lap times it simply just cannot do. Now, other than needing to know the car's limits, Charles also needs to know his own. He has limits despite the huge talent that he has. As long as he finds the sweet spot between pushing and not pushing too hard, Charles can easily be an even more skilled driver in F1. Now, Sergio Perez's weakness is that he drives like he's racing for a Chinese F4 team. On a serious note though, his driving style of preferring an understeery car with a predictable rear paired with a Red Bull that's not designed to be driven effectively through that style is his main weakness. A car that simply doesn't fit his driving style is what's stopping Checo from performing well in F1, as he really needs to work on his adaptability and flexibility as a driver. As Alex Albon said in an interview, the Red Bull car is so fine-tuned to whatever is the fastest, and that means that the car is prone to oversteer. Checo and his driving style just can't seem to extract the car's potential, whereas for Max, his driving style fits absolutely perfectly with what the car is designed to be. This is very similar with Dianel Ricciardo and McLaren, except Checo hasn't been paid millions of dollars to leave. Folding under pressure is another one of Sergio's weaknesses, as quickly after the first few races in the 2023 season, his chances of snatching the championship from Max went from slightly possible to below 0. Heck, I'd even say negative. And his chances of getting sent back to Mexico went from 0 to 100. This is common with being Max's teammate, not being deported to Mexico, I mean. Instead, it's very common for teammates to find it very difficult to try to keep up with Max if they have a driving style that just doesn't suit the car. So Checo is forced to take more risks and is extremely pressured to stay in competition against Max, especially with the pressures that are often present in the Red Bull family and the hype generated from fans and the media. And of course, let's not forget another one of Checo's main weaknesses, which is devastating, and it's something called border patrol. Get it? Because he's Mexican. Now, I know a lot of you guys are expecting something very, very critical when it comes to Logan Sargeant, but let me tell you guys something. Logan Sargeant is without a doubt the best Formula 1 driver to ever exist in all of history. I mean, just take a look at his statistics. His points in 2023, 1. But how many points did Ayrton Senna, Michael Schumacher, and Sebastian Vettel get in 2023? Exactly. Absolutely none. Therefore, I conclude that Logan Sargeant is the best Formula 1 driver to ever exist with no weaknesses whatsoever. But unfortunately, he doesn't know what a kilometer is, henceforth why he probably crashes a lot. Bro doesn't even know the speed that he's going at. Now, with not just Logan driving like he's mentally ill and showing his ever-dying love for the barriers in almost every single race, another flaw he has is that his whole personality revolves around him being American. I mean, don't get me wrong, freedom and all that is cool, but like, damn, it's almost like that's all he's got, you know? I get that it's his first year in Formula 1, but Oscar Piastri has literally shown more personality despite him being a more reserved person. Now, this doesn't have to do with Logan's driving at all, but Logan's lack of personality makes it hard to relate to him as a driver and become a fan favorite. Although based on what he has to offer fans, even if it's barely that much, I still kind of like the guy.
So the penalty was for being out of position in the grid box at the start of the race.
Like in my previous video, I want to restate the point of ego being one of Esteban's biggest flaws as a driver. He defends to such a dangerous degree against his teammates compared to other drivers, which puts himself at risk and the team's result in jeopardy. This is likely because he wants to be seen as the better driver in the team, which I generally don't disagree with wanting that, but what Esteban does to achieve it is just straight up unacceptable. Esteban's ego to be seen as the superior driver in the team is a deep-rooted issue, making his decisions on track to lack intelligence and common sense. Now, before you go after me in the comment section for butchering Esteban and any other driver on the grid, this is the perspective of literally the majority of the F1 community, which I am simply pointing out. So before somebody decides to put out a comment that is more absurd than Esteban's defense, please watch the whole video because I am not reading all that. Likeability is another issue with Ocon, which is mainly caused by his ego and behavior. I used to be a huge fan of him until his behavior started to take the spotlight. In the 2023 season, he came into a collision with Alonso during the qualifying session, and without hesitation, he immediately put the blame on Alonso during and after the session. This man thinking that he's in the right is more deluded than me thinking I have a chance with women being a Formula 1 fan. Ocon's likability is preventing him from reaching his full potential in F1, not just by being a good driver, but by being loved by fans. F1 is not just about skill, but also personality. There's a reason why teams invest so much time planning their PR activities for their drivers so they can gain more fans and traction. So if Ocon would have that kind of behavior, it's preventing fans from finding a reason to like him.
Why do you think that you obviously feel that you're being targeted? Maybe it's because I'm black.
Now, a lot of people think that Lewis's main weakness is Max Verstappen or Fernando Alonso or Toto Wolff. But once again, you guys are 100% wrong. Lewis Hamilton's greatest weakness, which I think everybody knows by now, is Michael Massey. Without Michael Massey, Lewis probably would have already retired with his 8th world title, but because of the controversial Abu Dhabi 2021 and probably the entire 2021 season, Lewis is still hunting for that 8th, which probably explains the finger. On a serious note though, as much as I like every driver on the grid and also Lewis Hamilton, his main weakness is his race starts. Remember when Lewis got pole in the Hungarian Grand Prix? Well, you probably don't, because he lost that lead almost immediately. Like, this just makes you think, what is going on inside his head?
Leclerc couldn't get Pierre Gasly in the end.
Well, you know what, Lewis? I don't blame you at all, man. I don't blame you at all. Baku 2021 is another infamous moment where Lewis's weakness of race starts decided to show. He's not necessarily bad at it, but he's bloody inconsistent. At least we got F1's most iconic scream after that restart though.
It's immediately chops across. Lewis Hamilton's gonna get the lead. Lewis Hamilton takes it away, but he locks up.
Trying not to complain on radio is another one of Lewis's bad habits. Remember when Lewis kept calling out drivers for track limits while he got himself a 5-second penalty for it? Well, you probably do, because this time Lewis kept complaining on his radio throughout the entire race, which was probably the only entertaining part of the whole thing anyway. But a lot of people say that Lewis could have put that energy into locking in and actually focusing to the max in the race. Toto Wolff even had to tell him to stop talking about the car and drive it.
Lewis, the car is bad, we know. Please drive it.
I mean, not gonna lie, I kinda don't blame Lewis for complaining since that car was an absolute dumpster fire. Plus, Toto probably couldn't do better anyway.
Toto! I'm just filming, just for documentary. Toto ran out of talent.
Prøver på udbanen.
Once again, most unsportive driver of the grid.
Suck my balls, mate.
Kevin Magnussen is probably one of the most inconsistent drivers on the grid. In 2022, he performed pretty well, scoring P5 in the first race, but in the 2023 season, he's significantly underperforming and has been getting outdriven by Nico Hulkenberg. Although some people may argue that Kevin is the most consistent driver, but instead he's the most consistent at underperforming. Kevin can also sometimes be your average drunk driver. He can sometimes be reckless on track, but thankfully we haven't seen much of that in the 2023 season. Let's not forget Kevin's biggest rival, which he sees as his #1 friend, a pole position. The moment Kevin got pole position in the Sao Paulo Grand Prix back in 2022, 9 months later, a new soul came into the world. Keep this man away from his pole positions. If he has as many poles as Lewis Hamilton, he'd probably have enough kids to run 15 Chinese sweatshops. Now, I know a lot of you guys are wondering, why the hell did I not include the other 10 drivers? And you know what? That's kind of valid. But the answer to that question is that I just kind of got tired making this video, guys. I mean, it's already like around 20 minutes long, and if I were to include the other 10 drivers, that would make it 40 minutes. I do not want you guys watching an entire ass documentary about me constantly just butchering F1 drivers. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's kind of fun, especially when it comes to like Lance Stroll or something, but obviously some of you guys might want to see the other 10 drivers being, you know, Daniel Ricciardo, Carlos Sainz, Oscar Piastri, Alex Albon, a lot of fan favorites. So what I'm gonna do is make this a part 1 and part 2 series. I'd figured that's probably the best way to go with this video. But yeah, I'm gonna see you guys in my next video where I'm gonna make the poorest jokes that wouldn't make anybody laugh. So see you guys in the next one.